Look while the intro music's up.
The Calder Cup Finals are coming up starting tomorrow night, and we've got the two teams to talk about. Charlotte and St. John's are ready to roll. Hi, everyone. TSibs with you, and the typical cast of characters are back again to talk about this final, including 4-H Pestilence, who will talk about his St. John's team, but we also have Prince of Zeus and Vibez Digital also here to talk about today's games. Gentlemen, how you doing this afternoon?
What's going on, Sibs?
Doing good.
Well, we got a chance the other night, Vibez, you and I, to talk about and to cover the Game 7 between Ontario and Charlotte. And, certainly an interesting game to watch how Charlotte really worked the trap on them and came away with another 4-1 victory off of that top line. And so, we have a bit of an understanding about the Checkers, and we'll talk about their series again a little more. But before we talk about the finals, I do want to talk about the semifinals a little bit. And I want to talk about that Game 7, just to rehash a little bit what we were talking about the other day, Vibez, and that is that Charlotte really worked the trap well. And is that something moving forward that can be consistently useful against a team, against any team, especially a St. John's team who took it to the Pens in 5 games? Can you do that game in and game out and have that kind of success all the time?
I personally think that you can. If you have a well-organized team that they all buy into the same system and they're ready to play that sort of team style of defense, you absolutely could. And I don't know. Watching that Game 7, I missed most of the series up until that Game 7, so I did miss some of the series. But that Game 7. The Ontario Reign sort of played right into it. They really didn't do anything. There weren't really any adjustments made that I saw to try and deal with the trap and break the trap. And once you have the wingers just straight lining down the side boards like that, there's really not a whole hell of a lot of room. And I think the Ice Caps do have the forward core to maybe deal with that a little bit better.
Zeus, I don't know if you got a chance to see that Game 7 the other night, but it is something that we talked about during the game and after the game, how successful that trap was. And again, we don't see teams who execute that as strictly as they did the other night, Charlotte. And is that, I tend to believe that guys can adjust to that quickly enough. It looked like Ontario had a big struggle to get around it the entire game. Again, is that something on the AH level that you could see working game in and game out? How quickly, if need be, can any team adjust to a trap like that?
Well, I didn't see much of the game. There was this dude wearing a fedora blocking my view in the stands. I don't know what the hell's going on with that. But for the most part, it just seems...
But you go fall off a fucking cliff, huh?
Oh.
Hang on a second. I'll be right back. So with the trap style, in the AHL, it works game in, game out because that does, as Vibez was mentioning earlier, it's a style that a team has to buy into. And if a team buys into it and executes it extremely well, you don't see that in the AHL very much. So honestly, that could be done game in, game out. That being said, the Ontario Reign, they've got, I say probably 1 or 2 guys ready for the NHL based off of what I've seen this year. So I don't know if they played in that Game 7 or not, but if they would have realized that they were going against a trap after the first period and then adopted dump and chase right away, we might have seen a different game. But since they didn't, we're looking at a Checkers Ice Caps final.
There wasn't any real lateral movement, Zeus. Like, it was just straight lining. You grab the puck and you run. There was no sort of
making the defense
finesse. There was no finesse or making the defense move out of position or anything like that. It was just sling crap at the wall until it sticks. Or hopefully, and it never did. So
true. Yeah, I've seen teams freaking pass it 9 times in the center in center ice, and that'll break down a trap every day. But if you don't do that, then yeah, running straight at a wall is not going to do any good.
Yeah.
So you got a chance to look a little bit, and we're going to talk to Psn in a minute or two here. But got a chance to look at the other series with the Pens and the Ice Caps, and a little bit different viewpoint on that one. Just from what I was able to see, it looked like the Pens may have been taking too many chances with guys jumping up from D, and the Ice Caps doing something that I think can be incredibly successful in this league if you do it well, and that is passing the puck quickly and often. And I think that combination, and perhaps the Pens not picking it up quickly enough to understand that they needed to spread out, play a little more defensively, and not give the Caps a chance. I think when you get to this level of play, quarterfinals, semifinals, definitely the finals, one thing's for sure that we've noticed the first few seasons, it only takes one bad mistake or two, and all of a sudden you're down 2 goals. And I think we saw that in that series. A couple of jump ups on defense by the Pens defenders, and all of a sudden the Ice Caps are on the board with a couple of quick goals. And it is much more prevalent as these series move on. And to me, that seems to be the reason why they went out in 5 pretty quickly. The Caps played a smart game, and they capitalized big time on what the Pens made a mistake on.
Yeah, I mean, the margin for error in these series, in all these games, is so tight. You mentioned that series wrapped up in 5 games, but you look at at least from the scores. I didn't get to see much of the series, but I mean, you 3-1, 2-1. There's one game that was a little wide open, 5-1, then 5-2, and 4-3. So, like you say, it's one false move, and the puck's in the back of your net, and it could eventually, end up in a loss. So it's tight.
Anybody else have any comments as far as that series is concerned? Just because, like I said, I think this is a point where you see that like during the regular season you'll see mistakes happen, and a lot of times you can come back from them pretty quickly. But again, it's kind of like what we were talking about a little bit the other day, Vibes. The gripping the virtual stick tightly, and I think. These kinds of mistakes happen, and you could be struggling to climb back. And anybody else got that kind of feel that this was the situation with this series of Pens and Caps?
Well, I mean, I didn't see many of the games, but based off of like what the scoreline shows, like the 4-1, it kind of almost begs the question on why. Not why, but what if the road to the semifinals for the Penguins was possibly too easy?
Mm-hmm.
Like, they weren't really tested in the first round. They won in 6. Granted, it's arguable at that point that it's a test. But then they won in the quarterfinals against a team with 1 goalie. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, like, they didn't really have many adversity compared to the Ice Caps who took on the crunch in game frickin' Series 1. Which most of us had in our pick'ems as the Eastern Conference finalists, for sure.
Right.
So they definitely deserve to be here at this point because they took out probably the most expected team from the East in the very, very first round. But aside from that, it's just really hard to tell. These scores, like, I've seen and have been a part of, 5-1 losses. And sometimes it's just the puck goes in and there's nothing the goalie can do, nothing the defense can do, and everything's working against you sometimes. But I don't know if that's what happened, but the Ice Caps were able to capitalize and not give anything back. So good on them for being able to play not only just a controlled game, but a very potent game. They were able to put up points in almost every single game except for the one they lost, but everything else is 3 goals or more, which that seems to be the winning formula. If you could score 3 or more, chances are you're winning.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk to 4-H Pestilence from the Ice Caps, their GM, and talk about the series a little bit more. I know we kind of hit on it the other night, Pest, when you were joining us for Game 7, but some of the things that we just talked about with your series against the Pens, did you see it that way, or what else do you think might have been a factor in how you guys were able to be so successful against them? Only one loss in your series, and picking this series up in 5, which I think we all admitted here earlier before we got on that I'm not sure if we would have picked you, and if we did, it wouldn't have been in 5. What other, did we hit the nail on the head, or is there are any other factors from that series that we didn't touch upon that you think made a difference for your team?
I'd say our team defense was probably the key factor in wrapping it up in 5. I mean, we held them to 9 goals in 5 games. So, like we saw the other night, we run a pretty strong team defense and try to trap a lot. See, I don't want to go too much into detail about what we're going to do, but
right, sure.
Yeah, I mean, everyone played great. We had 2 games where we put up 5 goals, so our offense is ready. Our goalies have been fucking amazing all playoffs long.
Yeah, I was just going to say, we talk a lot about other goalies, and I don't want to talk about it too much just yet before we get into the final preview. But, a clutch Dolphin on their team, he is posting an 86.9, almost an 87 save percentage with actually lower than a 2 goals against average, which, that usually should be enough to get it done. So he's been pretty good thus far through the playoffs.
Yeah, he is.
So again, we'll go back to the other series, the Checkers and the Rain. Again, we covered Game 7 the other night. We saw that kind of trap that they were able to execute on the Rain, and Ontario. And looking at both these series and looking at the way the losing teams played, both the Pens and the Rain. Both teams, to me, were aggressive, which is okay. But I think, Vibes, there's a level of aggression that you can play to that isn't dangerous, that isn't going to put your defense in a odd man situation or your goaltender having to deal with that too often. And perhaps for both the Pens and the Rain, they made a couple of mistakes here and there, but they were going up against teams who were able to capitalize on it quickly. And I think just in watching that Game 7, the Rain did not play a bad game. They just made a couple of mistakes that the Checkers were just waiting to pounce on. And again, I think a conservative game that emphasizes patience and the ability to wait for an opening to come up was pretty much what the Checkers did the other night. And I think, just in what I was able to see from some of the other games, a very similar style the whole way through. They didn't take too many chances, and it seems as though that's the way the Checkers were able to get past the Rain.
Right. It's almost like you say, they were just laying in wait for their opportunity to pop up, and with some of these teams that might be overly aggressive, that's a great way to go against them, is to, make them feel like, listen, we have to make it, we have to take a shot here, we got to take a chance, and you can make an error, make a mistake, maybe the defenseman jumps at the wrong time, and next thing you know, the puck's going the other way. So it was a great game plan by the Checkers, and just a solid game overall for them in that Game 7 that we saw.
How far do you go in a series in a championship game with that kind of play, Zeus? Do you think a conservative method of not making mistakes, keeping your guys back, playing smart, is that the best way to play? Is it a combination of that and taking chances? Again, it seems like Charlotte really did wait for the other team to make a mistake, and I don't know if that's really a fully successful method in the final round against another team who obviously is smart enough to get and good enough to get to where they are as well. Is that kind of conservative zone trap type style going to be enough for them in the finals?
So I'm glad you brought that up, actually, because if you're going into this round thinking that will succeed, knowing full well the other team knows how to do it as well, you're going to get punched in the mouth really fucking hard. Like, both teams know how to move the puck, right? Both teams have NHL caliber players at forward who have literally been, I would almost say, coaching the more inexperienced players. Pest, I don't know if you can really agree with me on that. Has, like, Mafia and Famous both been, like, stepping up a little bit and helping out some of the other guys on the roster who may have looked a little clueless early on in the season?
Yeah, for sure they have.
So, yeah, like, having players of their caliber clearly on his roster and being able to help the rest of the team just by, like, hey, try this, see if it works. And when it does work, that's when you have a dangerous team. But for the most part, like, the trap style, if you give Famous enough space, he will walk your entire team and he will score. If you give Jay Tryhard enough space, he will walk your team and he will score. Like, both teams have amazing forwards to the point where they can single-handedly carry a game. We've seen it from both sides already. So I would say the conservative style this series will not pay off, personally, just because the forwards are just too good. The defense might be able to contain them, but containing only gets you so far. So that being said, I hope to see not I wouldn't say so much aggressive like Smash Mouth hockey, but I would definitely like to see one team definitely take charge and not let up the gas for the most part.
I want to talk a little bit about goaltending. We'll get to I want to get to go through this position by position and talk about the matchups that are coming up. I want to start with the goaltending only because, again, we do have some good goaltending matchups going on here. We know that the Checkers are going to wind up putting 0-0 out there for the most part, and Jesus, who also has over an 87% save percentage in the playoffs so far. Obviously, Pest, you've got Clutch, and you've got Beast as your other goaltender who's played 6 games so far in the playoffs. We've got a pretty decent goaltending matchup in this one. But I want to talk about theory of starting the goaltenders. Is this a lot like real hockey where you go with the hot hand as much as you can go with it? Or, do you run the risk of not including the other goaltender enough to the point where maybe they get a little bit out of the series and, maybe not feel like they have enough time under their belts with a defenseman that they're going to wind up playing with, maybe get a little bit out of sync with them, and then you're endangering a game or two where you've got to go with that second goaltender who hasn't seen a lot of time. Vibes, you've had to be in this position. How do you deal with a goaltending tandem like this, and how often do you start your hot hand?
Well, you do have to abide by the 2 and 6 rule.
Sure.
So that's a league thing where you have to.
Right.
I feel like you use the goaltenders in a similar fashion to how you use the rest of the players, where you want to strategically place them into games that you think is going to work most to your benefit. For example, maybe if the other team is putting out their best, you might want to put in, your lesser goaltender, and with hopes that maybe he could steal a game for you. At the same time, you could balance it out between the forward lines, where if you put your better forward line or your better defensive line out, maybe you put your lesser. I don't want to use the word lesser because I don't want to make any goalie feel like they're the lesser, but you're not as potent goaltender with the better lines. This way it kind of counteracts one another. So there's definitely several there's a couple options that you can go with, and I guess it's a matter of taste in this particular case.
So, well, that brings up the bigger question, though, overall, guys. The matchups and waiting until the last second to get your lineup in. How much of that gamesmanship is important in what you do? And I want to start this one off with Zeus. There are guys out there who will put their line out. Matter of fact, Ontario had their line out for Game 7 earlier in the day. They didn't wait till the end to get their guys out there. How important do you think it is to wait and try and play the matchup? If you're the home team, wait to find out what the road team is going to do, and then get the guys out you want to. Does it make sense to do that, or is the management thinking too much at that point?
I didn't know they were doing that. No, that just doesn't make sense. If you have home ice advantage, you should always wait until, at least 1 to 2 hours before your game. That's kind of weird.
Usually.
Yeah. But if they're having their line, you're saying they had their lineup confirmed like 3-4 hours out?
Well, I don't know if it was confirmed, but the lineup they went with I had seen earlier in the day. So it wasn't like they put a lineup out there and then changed at the last minute. It actually was the same list of guys that they had out there. So
for Game 7?
Yeah, and I was kind of surprised to see that too. I agree.
Okay. All right. Now I know what you're talking about. Okay. So Game 7, I know that I27i7 trusted his team. I asked him personally. I was like, "Why the hell aren't you playing this game? Like, are you serious? Your season is out of your hands now. You've worked so hard. You've gotten this far. You lost your GM. You took over. You stepped up. You delivered. You've gotten this far. Why the fuck aren't you playing this game?" And he's like, "I trust them. They wouldn't be playing without me if I didn't trust them." I'm like, "Okay, man. Hopefully it pays out." And it didn't. So that's, I think, arguably his hottest line that he had to throw out there. And it wasn't just him that trusted him, right? From what I understand, the whole team was behind his decision to play that line. So kudos on the team for trusting the GM as well. And it kind of sucks because the Checkers showed up to play and it looked like the rain did not.
The other thing too, though, Sibs, is in a Game 7, if you've been doing your homework as a manager and you understand the other players from the other team, mm-hmm. I feel like holding onto the pocket aces is a little bit less important because the opposing manager should kind of already know what you're throwing out there. So maybe in that particular case, I would even maybe put my players, post the lineups early on, and maybe let the other team think about it. You know what I mean? When I was managing last season, I really bought into the whole, people would say mind games and everything like that. And sometimes to just throw your players out there and say, here's what's coming at you. Think it over because this is what's coming. But you should already know anyway if you're doing your job. So that could have something to do with it as well.
I have something I'd like to add.
Sure.
In our series against the Crunch, we went to Game 7, obviously. Game 1, as soon as signups were open, we put Mafia and company out, and we believe the JMM overthunk it. Then
there you go.
And then after Game 6, as soon as it ended and we knew 7, I put them in, confirmed them all, and let them think about it for 24 hours or 23 hours.
There you go.
Yeah. So and to your point, yeah. I mean, obviously, you can hold off and you can wait and make them wonder what you're doing, or you can put a lineup out there, and if you know the other GM well enough, he could be spinning his wheels for several hours trying to figure out what he's going to do. And to what you just said, I think that's exactly what you wound up doing to them. So yeah, I mean, I think there's benefits, pluses and minuses in doing it. But it's I think to your point, what you said right from the beginning, Vibes, you got to know who you're going up against. You have to understand that person, and what might make it tougher for them to do their job.
Yeah, the playoffs. I mean, it really is, and that's probably one of the best things about this league in particular is that it does really mimic, real life hockey, and just like the real life playoff, it does. It becomes sort of a chess match, and you think about these games where, like, how in real hockey where you match the third line versus the top line and so on and so forth. And it has all of the same ingredients, in this league, and it's interesting and it's fun. But yeah.
Yeah, sorry about that. Being a fucking the third liner for the Blackhawks and being matched up against the first lines of other teams.
Yeah.
I can tell you right now that strategy works very, very successfully because if you know your team is stronger than the others, right? And you put their first line, the one that they're supposed to be, their A game, and then you throw out your worst line just to say, hey, by the way, you're expected to lose this game. If you win, congratulations. If you're not, don't worry about it. We've got your back. Because the first line is going to be matched up against probably their second line, right? Mm-hmm. And then that's it. Like, it's GG. Like, if teams win in 5, usually that's what happens.
Yeah, you send your lower line in there. You send your low. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but you send your lower line in, and hopefully they can steal a game. And
it's a very successful strategy. I mean, it's worked for seasons on end up in the NHL, and it's finally trickling down here, is what it seems. So, but then you enter the mind games, like Pest was saying before. It's like, yeah, they're out there. What are you going to do about it?
Pretty much.
And if you get into the head of a GM like that, then pretty much you've won at that point. It's just how quickly can you do it?
So let's get to the discussion of the actual lines on both of these teams and who we saw playing. Obviously we saw the lineup of Jay Tryhard, Double Bra, and Traz play several games in their last series against the Reign, and you would think that would be their top line to start with. And on the other side, obviously Pest is not going to talk too much about this, but Mafia Man, T Nasty, Abdeel certainly have played well so far in the playoffs and could very well be the starter. From what we know about these guys, is there any of that strategy? Are these teams packed enough on both sides where matching lines may not make a difference, or is there still, even if there is a subtle difference between lines, is there still a good chance that they, both these GMs are going to play it that way, where they will try and match up when they have the home ice advantage?
Honestly, two things. 00 got back to you on Skype. TSibs?
Yeah.
Okay. And like matching up, you're going into a 50-50 at that point. Like if you got home ice advantage, you need to use every advantage you get. Knowing who they're going to throw out at you in the very beginning is so crucial. It really is. Because if you can get a 1-2 game lead, on the road, as the Ice Caps have actually done a couple of times, then they technically take the series back, and they've won most of their series because of that. And matching lines, I don't know, Pest, have you guys matched lines for most of the playoffs? I haven't really looked into it.
No. Well, not in the beginning.
Well, there you go. Matching lines
This is-
doesn't work.
This is a and I got to be careful because I don't want to do anyone's job for them. But this is an odd series because so now, correct me if I'm wrong, but the Checkers will have home ice in this series.
Yes, they will.
So Game 7 they have the quote unquote home ice advantage. But if you ask me, if this series goes to a Game 7, I believe there to be quite a distinct advantage for the Ice Caps. Because if these two teams end up having to match top line versus top line, I would say not only is there, and I don't want anyone to take any disrespect on the Checkers side, but
they will.
I would say that there is quite a heavy advantage for the Ice Caps should they ever have to match top line versus top line. So that's why this series is a little bit weird. It's a little bit odd for the Checkers. And these early games, these games 1, 2, 3 are paramount for them, because if they find themselves in a situation to where the series is tied heading to a Game 7, I don't really see a traditional home ice advantage for them in this at all.
Well, it's funny because the pattern, at least early in playoff series, and I don't know if it necessarily holds up when you get to the finals, but the pattern I've seen certainly in the couple of seasons that we've had so far on the PSN side is that you could see a team jump out to a 2-0 lead and still wind up easily losing the series. I think the matchup of lines is a crucial part, because I think there are teams who are willing to give up a little bit on the front end in order to be able to control, the later games. And whether or not that's going to happen here remains to be seen. But I don't know if I agree with you about jumping out to a 2-0 lead being incredibly important. I think it is. Look, you don't want to be down 2-0 in any series, right? But we've seen it all too often where that's happened and teams come back in this league. So I don't know. I guess it all depends on whether or not it's the home team taking that 2-0 lead. If the Ice Caps, you're saying it's Charlotte who has home ice in this, right?
Correct.
Yeah, they have.
So,
right.
I mean, if the Caps can jump out to a 2-0 lead, I think it makes it much, much harder for Charlotte, because they're going to wind up being able to do the matchup when they're home, and obviously, Pest has shown that him and his group can, know how to deal with the better teams and know how to offset their lines. If they're able to get out to a 2-0 or a 1-1 in this one, I definitely think that's a big advantage for the Caps. And if it gets to a Game 7, the question is going to be: does Charlotte learn anything about what the Caps were able to do to get them to a 7th game, and how are they going to counteract it? I think that's that's for either team, but that's definitely, we get to a Game 7, that's where the Checkers have an advantage and able to put out what they want to put out, and it'll all depend on whether or not they've learned anything in the first 6 games.
Right. I mean, well, to be fair, the Checkers have been in 2 Game 7s already. The Ice Caps have been in 1.
Right.
And people can make arguments. Oh, the Reign aren't the strongest from the Pacific Division in the AHL. Whatever. They were the team that got there. But the Wild, they got a good Game 7 lineup. I'm not going to lie.
Right.
And that being said, they took it to them. They beat them.
Yeah, I mean, the Checkers have
hard.
had the toughest path. They've had the toughest path to get here.
And I mean, they took out the Wolves, granted, in 5, but they did it pretty convincingly. So I've seen teams put out their third line in games 1 and 2 as an away team.
Right.
Now they have to match against lines 1 and 2 for the rest of the fucking series. Good luck.
Yeah.
Some teams, there's a huge skill gap between a third line and a second and first line. So getting rid of those guys early on can sometimes pay off, because if the other team is like, oh, it's their third line, let's go get a guaranteed win and throw out our first line. Now all of a sudden there's a third line versus first matchup later on down the road that's guaranteed at that point. It's so fun watching playoff games because things like this happen. You know, there's that strategy, there's bait and switch, there's so many options that you have as a manager. And it's exciting just to watch, really. And it looks like we got 2-0 in the house finally.
What's up, fellas?
Yeah, Double Zero joins us now on the broadcast. Certainly one of the hotter goaltenders that we've seen all season long, and has helped his Checkers team get to the final round here, the championship. So Zero, you know, obviously with the last series with Ontario, there were a few games where there were just a lot of shots fired from both sides. Typically, you see a lot of LG games where a goaltender is getting 15, 17 shots, somewhere along those lines. When you're facing that many shots on goal in the 20s on a consistent basis, do you feel like that helps your game a little bit? Does it keep you more into the game as you go along? That you're facing, you're facing more opportunities.
Well, I mean, you just gotta try to stay calm sometimes. Don't move too much in the net. I mean, it's just a personal reference, I guess.
How have you been? How have you and your defensive pairings been working this? Do you guys have a specific system that you try and go with as far as how they're going to handle their zones, or do you just let them do what they need to do and you try and be in position at all times?
I let them do what they do sometimes, but we got a little thing we work on, try to keep them to the outside, limit shots, basic stuff.
How do you feel about, I haven't talked to a lot of goaltenders this season. How do you feel about 17 and some of the changes that were made for the good, some for the bad, overall compared to what we had to deal with in 16 as a goaltender? How do you feel about the position and being able to play it in 17?
I mean, it's never going to be perfect, but I like it. It's better than 16, in my opinion.
So what, when you get down to a final game like this, and obviously your team has a couple of good goaltenders in yourself and Jesus, and you're able to put somebody out there at all times who is a solid in net. Do you feel like you guys are pretty strong in that position, and your team is going to be good in net no matter who's out there?
Oh yeah, for sure. I have total confidence in Cheese. If I don't get the job done, I know he can.
What have been some of the other key elements of your team that have made you guys so successful?
Offense is one of them, and also defense. Our trap is really lethal, as you've seen in Game 7.
We saw that in Game 7, that's for sure. Yeah.
So is that something? And again, I haven't watched the Checkers all that much this season, but is that something you guys have been doing from day one? That trap and trying to use it whenever possible.
I mean, we use it if the other team lets us use it, if that makes sense. Like, if the other team tries to force it up the boards, then we kind of use it. It just depends what the other team gives us.
And so, obviously, we saw Ontario try to break that. We saw that their strategy at times was to try and dump it in and go after it. So you're dealing with that. You're dealing with a couple of different ways of trying to get the puck towards the net. And that has to, you have to be able to recognize that pretty quickly to be in position. I'm assuming being able to try and handle different situations like that has probably helped your game a little bit and made you more aware of the possibilities that could wind up in front of your net, as opposed to facing a lot of teams who just want to drive it in on you all the time. Do you think having to deal with teams like this who have to try different strategies, does that make you a better goaltender in the end?
Oh, for sure, because it's all about learning how to read plays. It's all about just what opportunities are about to happen, reading the plays in advance, where can the shot come from. just different factors.
Zero. You nervous at all about going against this Ice Caps top line?
Not at all. Not at all. I faced so many top lines in the regular season and in the Wild Series and Wolves. So, I mean, I have total confidence in my team and my defense.
T Nasty's coming down on you on a breakaway. What's going through your head?
Just let him make the first move.
Well, you know what? I tell you what, if there's one thing I've learned playing goal is that, and in 17 it might be a little worse, is that if you overreact even a little bit, you're in such a bad position in the goalie position. You know, it makes it really tough to possibly be there when he makes his move. And I think I think Zero hits it on the head. You can't be trying to get the guy coming down on you to make a move. You've got to wait to see what he does first.
You can tell why Zero is such a good goalie, man, because this guy is cool as hell. He's got ice water running through his veins. I love those answers.
Yeah, it's not the. Fuck it. I'm not gonna say it. I'm not gonna say it. I'm not gonna say it.
Well, let's let you talk a little bit about your game. What has made you as successful as you've been this season? What do you, if you're going to name a couple of things, what is it that has made you a standout goaltender in season 3?
I mean, playing goalie in real life, just what I could do in real life, I added to my game in PlayStation.
So do you feel like this version of it in 17, they talked about trying to make it so that it was a position that you could play better if you knew how to play the real goaltending position? Do you feel like they've accomplished some of that?
Sort of. I mean, it's never going to be perfect. We're talking about NHL 17, but it's all about angles, positioning, learning how to replay. So basically what goaltenders really do in real life, yes.
You mean dressing room 17 simulator, right?
Yeah, dressing room.
T Nasty says ice water in your veins until the puck's behind you.
Savage! Get him!
Crap talking starting already.
About 2 goals. That's about it. That's about it. Only 2 goals.
Hey, two is all he made.
2 could get it done, though. 2 could get it done.
So we're okay. Obviously, you favorite your team. But how do you see this going? Do you think this is going to be a long series, or what do you think the level talent is? Your team against the Caps. What do you how long is it going to take you to get this done if you win?
I mean, I'm not underestimating the Ice Caps, but I mean, we're gonna have to say we're gonna win it in 6. Honestly, I just have total confidence. I mean, but past a series, I think we could win it in 6. Try to get this done quick.
What do you think of 4H Pestilence? Do you like him?
He's a good GM. He's not bad. He was talking a little bit crazy on the other podcast.
Yeah.
See, Zero is smart. He knows that he doesn't know who he's going to play for next year. You never know.
He's good. I like Zero.
Listen, Zero, thanks for joining us today. We appreciate your time, and listen, good luck in the series, buddy.
No problem, man. Thanks. Appreciate it.
All right, we'll talk to you later.
All right, man.
Thanks, Zero.
Yep.
That was 00 joining us, and I think your point is taking Vibes. He's a cool customer. He is. Very quick with his answers, and that's a goaltender. You gotta.
He didn't even
right
flinch.
away what you want to say now.
He didn't even flinch. You hear him? He didn't even flinch. That's good.
So let's turn to the GM of the Caps and ask him what he thinks about 00 and their defense in general, and what kind of a roadblock is this going to be for you, Pest?
Oh, he's a great goalie. That's for sure. He's shown it all season long. But I think their defense can be exposed for sure.
Seems like we got a few of the players hanging around the shout box. I don't know if you wanted to see if a couple of them wanted to come on, as long as they could be, Yeah, civil. And
Luigi? Oh, yeah.
yeah, it'd be cool
You
to
get
hear
back.
from a few of them.
If we can get him on, we'll try and do that. But let's get back to talking about the series itself. You've got you've got a lot of your top scorers in the playoffs are coming off of both of these teams. Let's just talk about your team a little bit past, and we've talked somewhat about Mafia Man. Tell me what you like about his game most, and what you think he brings to that line that he plays with.
He's great all around. Dude knows how to bury the puck. He's also set up Famous shit ton. I mean, I don't think Famous even has an assist in the playoffs.
He's got 3.
He's got 3. Yeah.
My bad.
Was that you calling your player a puck hog? Is that what just happened?
Hey, man, when you have the confidence to put that puck in the net, can you blame him?
No, not at all.
Like, he leads the entire playoffs in goals scored.
Yeah.
And what Mafia has been doing behind the scenes has been a huge help to me and Hunter. He's given us input, even because he's an owner over on Xbox, if anyone didn't know that.
With the Wild, right?
Yep. So he knows some things. He's been helping us along.
And I think we've seen this in some of the more successful teams over the last couple of seasons. When you get that line and you have a couple of guys who play well with each other and know their role with each other, it's perfectly fine if somebody scores all the goals and the other guy sets them up. As long as they're on board with that and are okay with it, and it sounds like that's kind of the situation you have with Mafia Man and Nasty. They understand, each other's game, and they don't try to buck against it. They seem to work with it.
For sure.
I tell you what, Zero's a lot braver than I am, because if I was going against T Nasty and Mafia Man, not that I play goalie, but if I did, I better be wearing a diaper. Because,
Diving poke check for the win.
I don't know. I'd be, I don't know.
That's like the ultimate panic move. It's like, he's coming at me really fast. Diving poke check.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure what I'd do, honestly. Both of those guys they're 6-0-1. So I guess that means they lost one game in overtime.
Yeah, they lost game 1 against the Comets.
And that's it, huh? Other than that, undefeated.
Yeah.
Wait, let me get this straight. You telling me they were undefeated against the Crunch, undefeated against the Penguins, and you lost at a fucking Comets? Come on! Man.
Yeah, I guess they did drop one. They dropped one in overtime against the Comets.
Fuck.
Well, look, that could all be a matchups too. Sometimes
Fuck
things
that.
just
They're
turn out
NHL
well.
players. Doesn't matter about matchups for them. Oh my god. Was something was like a 2-1 loss? I'm checking right now.
5-4.
Oh, what the fuck? You got outscored. How the fuck you get
To be fair, RID was having lag issues the whole game.
Well, yeah, the comments are French. The fuck? Oh,
You're trying to blow up both borders right now? I mean, this is ridiculous.
Oh my god.
Well, hopefully we'll get this settled down and have Skilled Python in here shortly. He's come available, so
He's around?
Yeah,
we're waiting for him to jump in, and
good.
hopefully we'll get him on here soon to talk a little
Maybe
bit
we
about
could
the
have
series.
him and Pest have a rap battle or something.
No,
What do you guys think?
I'm done with you.
Well, again, I mean, look, we could talk a little bit about that before Skilled comes on, and obviously, Pesh, you don't want to give everything away, but we saw that trap the other night, and we talked a little bit about it after the game, but that's something that you guys are going to have to deal with at some point, even if they don't do it right away. You know that at some point they're gonna want to do that. Is that something on your end? If you're going to throw something like that at a team, do you throw it against their best lines? Do you try and take advantage of a matchup to do it in? When do you think the best opportunity is to do something like a trap game like Charlotte did in Game 7?
That's a tough one. I mean, I would, probably save it for Game 7. Throw it all on the line. If it works, like they showed that it does, then, you're pretty much guaranteeing yourself a win. But if the other team knows what they're doing and is able to break through, leaving your goalie pretty exposed.
And I'm assuming you guys have already talked about this and how you're going to handle it.
Oh, yeah.
Already out there practicing, I assume.
For sure.
Well, forget about the series for a second. Talk to me just a little bit about how the season has shaped up, and the fact that you're in the finals. Obviously, things have worked out well for you. But have there been a lot of ups and downs for your team? Obviously, your record didn't start out great, but did you see the possibilities of what was going to happen with your team? Did you see that yourselves getting into the playoffs and making some headway, or what? Early on, did you have a lot of concerns about your team?
Yeah, we didn't start off too hot, but we made a lot of trades and finally got a roster we felt comfortable with.
Yeah, you did.
And then that last week we went 8-2, and that's when I felt like this team could go all the way, because I saw that finally everybody was starting to come together and really mesh, and it's just exploded from there.
Yeah, and then he got the Barracuda pregnant.
So I gotta ask you this. Actually, I haven't really had this thought for any of the interviews I've ever fucking done. But have you ever been in a team or had a team around you where you see something that should be clicking extremely well, it's going to eventually, yet it doesn't, right? Does that ever frustrate you beyond all belief? Being that all three of you are GMs this season, right?
Yeah.
Have you had a team, you see something that should be there for a line, and yet for whatever reason they just don't click for one way or another? Does that piss you guys off?
Yeah, a little bit. That was my season last season. Just, I don't know. The whole team faced, when I was goalie, I faced a shitload of shots, walking up to the net. And that was just a frustrating season all year long.
Oh, that's right. You played goalie last season.
That's right, yeah.
Fuck that.
What other key factors do you think play into a championship series? Not just playing against the checkers and specific strategy, but what other things are factors in a final series like this that you may not be thinking about during the regular season, but now that you're in the finals, you have a slightly different mindset too. And I guess one of the things I'm thinking about is the lineup, the strategy of who you put out there right away. It might make sense to always start with your best line, but I guess it all depends on whether or not you feel like the matchup is going to be that effective. Is there anything different that you think about in a final series that you wouldn't normally think about in a regular series during the season?
No.
I'd tell you what the very first thing is with a final, with any playoff series, it's availability. That's where it all starts. Making sure that you have the availability. That's where it all begins, and then from there you move out.
I would kind of argue to say that it's even before that. So check this out. You have been playing in playoffs now for the last 3 weeks. Okay? You have 3 weeks of data against quote-unquote high-caliber teams, right? That's the best that made it this far. You have seen who has played when, right? So you can go back, check to see, what days did double zero play? What days did tryhard play? See if there's any correlation. Were they the same days? does that mean that they're the limited availability themselves? So, yeah, availability on your team is always priority, but when you know their availability as well, just based off of what you can gather, because I know there's some NHL teams, some players can only play Sundays, Mondays.
Wow, Zeus has gone into some serious covert ops shit here to try and figure out what's going on.
I got Boots as an owner. That guy made well life. That dude is smart as shit.
I was gonna say, you know what's funny, man? Everything that he's talking about, I've done it all.
Yeah, and then there's not only that, since it's playoff series championship, you've gotten this far. Why don't you spend the extra couple hours max to watch some old game footage from them, figure out what they like to do in what situations, who breaks under pressure, and then relay that to whoever is playing against them.
Well, let's ask Pest. I mean, how much of that have you done? Have you been? Do you believe in going back and watching some film on this team? Do you have a style of how you like to attack a new series in the playoffs?
Savage. He's like, fuck.
Well, no, you kind of. God, I don't want to say this. We have had a game plan all playoffs long. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay.
But or strategy, you know. But I'm going to go back and check through each of their games and see who played when. But it's not going to change what we do. We're confident with all three lines. So if they want to sacrifice their third line against Mafia and Famous, that's fine. But I feel confident that any of our lines can beat any of their lines.
And that's the reason why I asked it, because there can be a lot of prep that can be done, but you also have to believe in the lines that you have, and if you feel like you're solid across the board, strategy is nice, but it may not be all that pertinent necessarily.
Yeah.
K-Mac says, make sure everyone knows the Pick'em King has the checkers.
K-Mac said that. Okay.
I'm sorry, not K-Mac. Mystic Mac.
Mystic Mac. I was going to say, that sounds more like well, you know what? We tried to get him on here, and he
might be doing stuff with his girl. Can't blame him.
Well,
he's 85.7%.
Yeah, he's been on point.
Yeah, we have we have had a poll up before today's show, and there is about 2/3 of the people out there who are voting for St. John's, and the other third for Charlotte. So it is, it is a vote where a good amount of people think St. John's can overcome Charlotte.
Are we going to get to do live picks at the end of the show?
Well, we're getting to the end of the show quickly. We're trying to still get Python on. We'll give him a minute or two, but let's start doing that now. We'll start out with Zeus and give us your thoughts and opinions, and finally your pick on this series.
I refuse. No. So we've got the Ice Caps. They have NHL caliber players, clearly having been there and are currently there on either Xbox or here in PS4. The goaltending for the Ice Caps is actually like an unsung hero, to be completely honest. They were able to shut down the Penguins. Like, I don't know if that was a complete team defense or if the goalie stepped up. I haven't looked into the games. I'm so tired. I can't do that shit. But that being said, the Ice Caps, they've got a good chance. And that doesn't discount, like, the Checkers. They've got 00. They've got Jesus Christ. They've got, which, funnily enough, like, I look at this name and I just think Kraz, but it's Traz. Double Bruh and Tryhard. That's a line. I don't know if their second line is as productive as they are in the playoffs. But if that second line can pump up the adrenaline a little bit and get a little bit more scoring involved, then we can see this definitely going 7. If it does go 7, I don't see the Ice Caps losing, because Mafia and Famous will seriously show up when they have to. They did it against the Crunch, and I think they could do it against the Checkers too. So I would say Ice Caps in 7.
All right, Vibes?
Pestilence, earmuffs.
He's the black sheep with the fedora. Can't blame him.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, plug your ears. I think I'm getting a little bit of an echo here. I'm not sure where that's coming from. So I can't do this with the echo. Who's got the echo? Where's the echo coming from?
I don't know. It's not me.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Sorry.
I don't know why I'm hearing such an echo. All right, so I'll try. Hold on, I'll take my headphones off. All right, so I think that the Checkers are going to be able to take this in 6 games. I think if the series goes 7 by some stretch, then the Ice Caps will win it. But I think that the Checkers have enough team defense and enough goaltending to maybe frustrate the Ice Caps top line and get under their skin. And then you have the forward group of Traz, Tryhard, and Double Bra, which should be enough offense to get it done. And I think that the Checkers will take this in 6 games.
Well, there you go. Like I said earlier, I think if St. John's can get to 1-1 in the first 2 games, or sweep them both, I think that gives them an excellent chance to win this series. Now, I think both teams are pretty well stacked with talent. I think I may like the Checkers a little bit more, only because I think I as a goaltender, I think I like the fact that they've got 2 very solid goaltenders to go, and I don't think you have a weak game or 2 where you've got something you might be able to take advantage of. Now, Beast has played pretty well, but of the 4 goaltenders we're talking about here, he would be the guy that you say if there's somebody of the who would be number 4, it would be him. So I'm thinking the Checkers have a little bit better roster just because of that, and I think their front lines, including their Jay Tryhard line, is pretty solid. I think just the opposite of what maybe 1 or 2 of you said, which is I think if it gets to a game 7, I think Charlotte has proven that they can take game 7s, and if it gets there, I wouldn't be surprised if the trap shows up again, and then it'll all depend on whether or not the Caps can get past it. I'm going to say that it will be Charlotte in 7, and but look, the Ice Caps. Hard to pick against them when they knocked off the Pens in 5 games, quite honestly. But just watching the Checkers a little more this past week, I feel like if they can take this series the distance or 6 games, they have a chance to win this. I think if the Ice Caps do win it, it will be a quick series. I think that's how it'll happen. I think it would be very much the way the Pens, if they can match up and play a good line-by-line game with against the Checkers and match them up well the first 4 or 5 games, they can win it in 5. But the longer the series goes, I think the better chance that the Checkers have of winning it. And I think it's going to go long, and I think the Checkers are going to take it in 7.
Damn, so I'm the black sheep? What the hell?
Funny how that happens.
Mystic.
We may never hear from Pest again after this.
What? I will.
Yeah, you will.
But we will. I'd like to say in advance, in case we're not back on again for a wrap-up show, that if the Ice Caps do win, then I will very much apologize to Pest.
Will you take your fedora?
Well, that's his fedora. So Vibes will mail you his fedora if his pick is wrong.
Bullshit! You ain't got my fedora.
No, I'll give you permission to keep it.
Well, so Pest, reactions of us totally dissing you on the show here and not having a lot of faith in your team, or is that where you want to be? You want people to not have faith in your team?
Oh, it's been that way all playoffs. Why change now?
He's used to it. He's like, I take the abuse. I'm ready.
He sounds a little upset if you ask me.
Nah, I'm good. I'm good.
Well, we're going to wrap it up here because Python having some issues trying to get on with us here, but we'll try and talk to him. Hopefully before one of these games this week, we'll get a chance to talk to Python a little bit, and we'll also hopefully hear from Pest as well. Listen, Pest, thanks again for joining us for the show today, for the game 7 the other night. Best of luck with this series, and hopefully we get a chance to talk to you before or even after a few of these games coming up in the championship.
For sure. Thanks for having me on, guys.
All right, and again, Vibes and Zeus, appreciate your time today. Yeah, it's been fun doing the show, and hopefully we'll get you guys back on when we do the live broadcast later this week.
Just want to say it's starting to heat up in the shout box already. It seems like these teams are ready to go.
Well,
they're ready to go.
This is the point where you're going to get a lot of this talking going on, so I'm not shocked at all. Guys, thanks a lot. Talk to you tomorrow night, hopefully.
Yep.
That's it for today's show. We will talk to you tomorrow night live from Game 1 of the Calder Cup here on LG and PSN. Thanks a lot for joining us. We'll talk to you later.